Hello, this is Jeramiah Giehl, and welcome to the episode It's Getting Hot in Here of the Something Newsy podcast. With me today are Sam, Conkle, and Fernando. We're going to be discussing climate change, the recent heat wave, and how to stay cool and survive. Sam, did you want to give a short introduction of why you're taking this class and what you hope to get out of it?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a journalism major, so this is part of the curriculum I have to attend to get my degree. But I'm hoping to get out of it learning skills for the real world. This is an important one, especially with podcasts taking over a lot of the media market, taking away from print. And I just want to be able to help tell underrepresented events throughout journalism. So that's why I'm taking part in journalism.
Right.
Thank you.
Quite interesting. Yeah. So, Conkle, what is your interest in journalism and what do you hope to get out of the class right
I started journalism this path because I had an interest in financial crimes and I want to bring justice to those who commit them. And through the class, I hope to just get work experience. It's practically just like working in a smaller newsroom, and I'm just really excited to be here today.
now? All right. Fantastic. Fernando, what is your reason for wanting to take journalism and what do you hope to get out of the class?
The reason I joined journalism is because that was the only class that accepted me. And one of the things I want to do for a passion is write books. And what I want to get out of this class is learning how to work with editors.
So, we live in California, and some say we pay a sunshine tax, but this last year we've experienced a lot of extreme rain, and a lot of people were wanting refunds. At least that was the buzz on social media, and we experienced a recent heat wave here. So let's go ahead and go around our panel here and see what they have to say. Um, Sam, do you want to go ahead and lead us off here on the recent heat wave we experienced?
Yeah, for a city that brags openly on their city website about having the most perfect weather in the world, pretty much. It didn't really feel like that recently, especially with some of the other weather we're having. It's not feeling like that. So that record heat that we just experienced, according to the National Weather Service in San Diego, that was due to heat getting trapped under high pressure fronts. And that's why it caused it to stay there for so long. It kind of just sat over Southern California and Nevada. And we were seeing temperatures into the 90s in some of the inland areas in the hundreds, I believe. And San Diego's average high for August and September normally is 76 degrees. That is much lower than the recent heat wave that we've experienced. So that's just one a more major weather event that we've been dealing with recently in sunny San Diego. Perfect weather, and it's not really feeling perfect.
Yeah, speaking of the California heat specifically and the heat waves themselves, it's actually been the hottest decade for California the past 10 years, 2014 to now. And we're seeing just increasing heat waves every year. I think most recently in 2016, there's just been a turn in heat waves, and we're seeing like 2 times more than we used to. They're just way more frequent. And the heat waves themselves are not getting any better. We have a lot more clouds now because of the climate change that I'm sure we'll talk about later. But those clouds are contributing and prolonging the heat waves by trapping the heat overnight, which not only like makes the nights hotter, but it just keeps the air there longer. So it's extending the heat waves. It's making it harder all the time, and it just provides no relief for anyone affected by the heat wave. So it's just really a risk that we're seeing continue to go on.
Speaking of California and the weather, there was like this thing there in like around Mission Beach, and it was called
The king tide, yeah.
yes, the king tide. And I was like at home when I realized that was happening. So I did some research into it, and I remember hearing that because of the weather change, the water is coming towards here, if I remember correctly.
Well, you were talking about the recent king tide that happened along the coast here that was pounding everything from La Jolla Shores, La Jolla Cove, Pacific Beach, Mission Beach. I know that it was washing out the sand. Now, we're experiencing a lot more extreme weather, whether it's extreme heat, more rain. What kind of research did you guys come across regarding climate change and the current status of weather in sunny California here?
Speaking of at King Tide, I live a couple blocks from the beach and also work in like on Mission down here. And that was definitely something that we had to deal with, boarding up businesses. You know, a lot of businesses had to be like sandbagged and boarded up, homes. That's affecting people's money. And I know it was way worse in some of the valley areas in California, but just some great to that extreme weather events we're dealing with. Just still speaking about the heat, every year since 2013 has gotten progressively worse across the United States for heat and its impact on our energy grid. California itself had experienced 145 weather-related major power outages. That's any outage that affected 50,000 people or more. So pretty much any time a outage on the California coast, it's a major power outage. But that's due to the heat being worse from global warming. It's kind of compounding, or climate change in general. It's the heat being worse from that, and it compounds because as people pollute more, and there's so many more people polluting and causing damage to our environment, it gets hotter, and that causes us to need more air conditioning, refrigeration, and electronics in general, and that causes stress on the grid. And that's why I believe we've been having them more and more every year.
Yeah, I
Now,
wonder if we're gonna have to start doing like rolling blackouts soon for the state just to make sure that people have power. Or I wonder if we've already started doing that.
I know
they
that
those on occasion. There are certain communities that have been affected with rolling blackouts on occasion because of that. Um, but as there's continued stress on the grid, you might start seeing that happen more and more.
yeah, I think that happens in a lot of like the Valley area in LA. A lot of those rolling blackouts. I know some parts of the South they do it, but for a city that again brags about its perfect weather, I think it'd be crazy if we have to get to that point.
Wait, do we have perfect weather? Because I remember hearing like different like different neighboring like areas talk about how we have like one of the worst weather because it's super hot every time here. They always like visit.
What were
Maybe
they?
they visit during the heat wave.
Maybe they
Yeah,
came during the
they
heat
were
wave. That's
visiting
what it
from
is.
Minnesota.
I
I
feel
don't know.
like
It's all
people
relative.
say that San Diego is like a dream to be. It's like paradise. It's like
It's
Yeah.
everyone's
it's
like wannabe destination, I feel, for
it's
the most
always
part.
They're
voted
like
like number one or two in the world when it comes to cities climates.
Oh yeah.
We have historically just been great, and
Yeah.
recently we're seeing some more issues.
A
And
little
that's I
bit
think
more. Yeah, so I've lived in Texas and Arizona where it gets I feel like in Arizona it would be like a 95 to 105 like 8 9 months out of the year, and Texas where it would be humid and hot in the 95 degree range, probably 3 4 months out of the year, very hot. So Californians crack me up when they're out here talking about it's hot and it's like 82 and you're like it's hot. No, no, it's mildly warm. It's a little tropical. But let me go put you out in the desert where it's 105 and dry. Now that's hot.
yeah.
California's cracked me up because the two things that Californians don't know how to handle is heat and rain. Once it starts
why
raining,
do
there's accidents everywhere, right?
Yeah, potholes and accidents. It's like the worst drivers come out in the rain.
It's ridiculous. So Conkle, what information did you come across in your research regarding climate change?
Regarding climate change, speaking of the rain, we saw a lot in March. We saw a lot like throughout the past few winters, and it's just threatening communities like Mission Valley, which got flooded in March. And victims are still like going through insurance processes. They're still rebuilding their apartments. They're just going through so much. And it just won't get better. As a matter of fact, with the heat hitting the ground so hard, all the moisture just escapes the ground. There's almost none on it. It just creates a really dry climate. But then all the moisture just goes into the air, and eventually it's going to have to come back down. And because it's just all up there now, or like most of it, when it comes down hard, and we just can't really handle. Like we don't have the infrastructure for that with our storm drains and the way that we get rid of the water that comes in. And it's just really negative to communities like Mission Valley that get flooded and then they have to go through these just long processes over and over again just to like stay alive, really.
Yeah, San Diego realized that, I believe in like 1998, that they were going to have to spend, I think, $450 million to equip us to be able to deal with that type of flooding and rain.
Mhm.
And we've had two major floods since that have cost way over that amount. Yet we've still yet to put that change in infrastructure into plan with those rains.
Well,
I know there's other issues in getting the money, but
yeah.
I know there's
I
a
think
number
just
out there.
looking
We've
at the
exceeded
damages.
money.
Yeah.
Yes, we've exceeded the damages have exceeded the cost of what those would have cost our budget. So Lindbergh Field, San Diego Airport is the official measuring, like National Weather Service measuring location for the city of San Diego. On like when you talk about it broadly,
Mm.
and just recently, the rain we were talking about, we see we got 16 inches this last year in 2023, and that's the most since 2005. It's the last time we had that really big flood, I believe.
Mm.
And then the rain in this year in February is 200% more than more rainfall than what we usually receive for that month. And part of it, according to Martin Routh, the director of the Center for Western Weather and Extreme or Water Extremes, he's a scientist that specializes in that field, has said that the heat that we've been dealing with recently and just around the world has heated up the water, especially in San Diego. We've recently hit our average water temperature high. This is goes back to 1950. It's the hottest it's ever been, and this hotter water causes more. This hotter water causes more water to go in the atmosphere. Like Conkle was saying, it has to go somewhere, and that's why we're getting these atmospheric rivers and 1,000-year storms. People like to blame it on El Nino happening every 10, 15 years, but it's one of the worst rainfalls we've had, even with El Nino. So combined with El Nino, combined with the hotter water, that's why I believe we're seeing these crazy floods and crazy rainfalls.
And we shouldn't really be able to get that kind of storm here, right? That was like the first of its kind in a really long time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you shouldn't have. It's never good when you're able to get 1,000-year storm, you know.
Well, I remember going to the zoo, and I saw a polar bear, and for some reason it was green. And I did some research into that, and I found out because of the weather changing and the icebergs melting, um, more polar bears are less cold air or less cold environments. So the algae will grow on them to turn them more green.
Okay. All right. Any other statistics, or facts you guys come across in your research regarding climate change?
I just wanted to add real quick that this year, in September with the heat wave, we saw 6 counties with record-breaking heat. So I just thought that was something to mention.
Moving on to our last question here. Most important question, I think, of all: how do you stay cool during these increasingly hot summers and survive these more inclement winters that we are experiencing here?
Yeah, so I just want to start by stating how big of a problem this is becoming. In 2021, we saw just over 1,000 deaths, heat-related deaths, that is, in the United States. And in 2022, we saw just above 1,700. And then just last year in 2023, we saw an increase up to 2,300. So it's just like, it's rising by a fair margin every year. And it's just something to take into account that it's a problem and it's happening now. It's not something that's like in the future. It's like, it is starting now. So one thing California specifically has done is they've set up what they call cool zones, which is just like any business, any place that has amenities, air control, literally just an area to stay cool. They have implemented a program, I think across the state, where you can get a free house fan. Just like if you're a low-income family and you can't really afford that, there's programs to aid you there. And then businesses that aren't like cool zones now can apply to be cool zones, and the list of requirements isn't really that much. It takes not a lot to be a cool zone, so I think more businesses should look into like being cool zones and inviting people into their space just to help them stay safe and just to provide like more sense of community even. And then I just wanted to talk about the importance of people over 65 staying safe. Their organs are, they are decaying to a point, and so they just can't take as much stress as they would have been able to. And so people that are 65 plus recently have seen a 3 times increase in cardiovascular problems that are heat related. And so that's just something of note. And then also infants need to have extra care. They don't have like the developed bodily functions to disperse the heat properly and to take care of themselves. And so people in the much lower and much older age range are seeing adverse health benefits, and it's just something to really take a look at as we go further in the years.
On that note of you talking about the old people and the children not being able to do it well, animals can't really do it well either. So some things those three groups can do to help with that, and it's not really them, it's us, just regular adults realizing that things that we can do to help mitigate the impact of heat on those at-risk groups is, even though powered window, like rolling down your windows and parking in the shade can mitigate some of it, it's not going to do enough. So you can't just leave them in the car. And you got to make sure when you're getting out of the car, a lot of child or children or animals die because their parents or owners forget that they're in the car when they get out, and they just leave them in there. They have a lapse in judgment and they leave them in there. So you got to make sure that your entire vehicle is empty before you leave. And then you got to make sure you lock it, because either your kid could go play in the car when you're not paying attention, or a neighborhood kid could go play in the car and get stuck in there. And in the heat, it can happen very quickly. If you see an unattended child or pet in the car, you should call the authorities and as fast as you can safely get the child out of the car. California, you're protected by like Good Samaritan laws, and I forget the other couple laws, but you are protected enough to where if you do the minimum amount of damage to a vehicle to get a child or animal out, you're well within your rights to do that. And then speaking of the heat, especially people who work outside, they're at risk as well. According to the CDC, here's some things that they can do. Drink water. You want to drink 1 cup every half hour when you're working outside. You don't need a ton of electrolytes from these like sports drinks and stuff. It can help, but you're going to get a bunch of unwanted calories, so it's going to affect your health in other ways. But as long as you're eating regular meals, it will replenish the salt loss from sweating. And then also on hot days, I know it's awesome to have a beer after a long day's work, but it will dehydrate you. It's going to do the opposite effect. So make sure you're still drinking water. And energy drinks as well. And my last point is going to be on energy drinks. It raises heart rates, and when your heart is already dealing with the high stress from heat, that's not a good mix. So try to stay clear of energy drinks on these super hot days.
Yeah, speaking of feeling dehydrated from beers, man, yeah, my weekend left me feeling kind of dehydrated here.
Yeah, real quick about the pets. Pets have bare feet, and the ground is a really hot surface, and so it's just really
Remember to give
important.
them booties.
Give them
Oh, wait.
booties or test
Yeah.
out, walk on your own time. Make sure it's good for them. Their feet will burn. It doesn't feel good for them. So just
I've gotten in the habit of walking barefoot if my dog is walking barefoot when it's hot.
yeah, just
So
take care of your little
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
That's
Solid
all I
advice.
had.
Okay, so one thing I like to say to everyone, even though it might not be the right advice, if you're in a car, right, you should leave a little bit of a crack on the windshields or windows. That way you can have the heat go out of the car when you're going somewhere. You know what?
Can
When
you
you're in a
elaborate on that a little bit?
Crack the window so there's some air.
Yeah, like
yes,
airflow
when
through
you're
the
like
car.
when it's parked
Airflow.
and you need to go somewhere.
Well, I mean, they say that the joke is that I got air conditioning. It's 4 windows, 60 miles an hour. So I mean, that is definitely one way to stay cool if you're not going to crank up the AC.
No, I mean like if you're parked all the way, you don't stay there and you leave it there for the whole entire day, right?
Mm.
If you have the windows cracked just a tiny bit, it's gonna be less hot in the car if you compared to if you had it not if you didn't have the windows like not.
Not had them open.
Yes, thank you. And also for pets as well. For me, what I do is I get something like a wet like a blanket or something, get it wet and put it on top of it. That way, it can feel some of the water from the blanket. And honestly, that helps my dog a lot. And another thing, make sure you're refilling the waters of the dogs too. And for your sake, for human people's sake, you should, compared to like what Sam said, drink a lot of water. And also, if you are in the room, make sure you close the blinds to the, like, open up the glass window and close the blinds, because when the sun hits you, it's gonna affect you more compared to if you close the window or close the curtains. Sorry, and also turn off lights. That way, it can be more cool in there, and open up windows as well and doors. Except for the front door or the, yeah.
All righty. Well, I want to thank you guys for your contributions today. Anybody got any last words before we sign off?
Just stay hydrated, stay in the shade, and just know your limits. Stay safe out there and look after your little guys too.
Yeah, this is very fun to do. And like they said, keep drinking water.
I mean, that sounds like a key. Stay hydrated. And I want to thank Sam, Conkle, and Fernando for participating in today's episode. I'm Jeramiah Giehl, and thank you for listening to Something Newsy Podcast. Tune in for more on the next episode.